Night pressed heavy over the desert, a velvet black stitched with thin silver stars. The wind carried the smell of dry sage and horse sweat, and every sound seemed sharpened to a blade. Clara moved through it barefoot, the soles of her feet cracked and bleeding, her torn dress whispering against the mesquite. Each step dragged a trail of dust, each breath rasped like paper. Behind her, a lantern's glow wavered, closer now. Hoofbeats thudded in the silence, slow and deliberate, like a predator savoring the chase. "Clara!" The voice split the night, drunk and jagged. "You run, girl, but you're mine!" Jeb Caro's words rode the wind, slick with whiskey and rage. Clara flinched, ducking low beneath a fallen branch, heart hammering against her ribs. She pressed a hand to her mouth, tasting blood and grit. Lantern light flared again. His boots crushed dry sage, spurs chinking with each step. "You can't hide," he called, breath heavy. "Ain't nowhere to go." Clara's eyes darted across the ridge, moonlight on pale stone, shadows deep as graves. She clutched the locket at her throat, her mother's last gift, and whispered so softly the desert almost swallowed it. "Let me fade unseen." The night held its breath. An owl shifted on a branch. The lantern's glow began to slide away, slow as a dying ember. Jeb spat, voice low and venomous. "You'll crawl back, they always do." His footsteps receded, boots grinding gravel until only the wind remained. Clara stayed still, muscles trembling. Minutes stretched like hours. When she finally rose, the horizon seemed endless. Dark mountains against a slice of cold moon. Her legs wavered, but she moved, stumbling toward that faint silver line. Above, stars burned steady. The desert whispered promises of freedom and death in the same breath. Each step away from him was a battle, the scrape of stone on her skin, the ache in her chest, the fear that he'd return with a gun. But she kept moving, a lone figure etched against the night, her shadow thin as a knife. Somewhere beyond the dunes, a coyote cried, a sound of warning or maybe of hope, and Clara walked on, refusing to be claimed. Lantern light swung in a slow arc as Elias Grant reined in his gelding. The desert stretched silent beneath a pale wash of moon, sagebrush whispering under a restless wind. He'd ridden this trail 100 nights, but something in the air felt wrong, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Then he saw her. A pale shape at the edge of the dry creek, half hidden by brittle weeds. For a heartbeat he thought it was a trick of moonlight, but the shape moved, just barely. Elias dismounted, boots sinking in the loose sand. The horse snorted, uneasy. He crouched, lantern lifted. "Lord above," he murmured. The young woman lay crumpled, face streaked with dust and blood. Torn cloth clung to her like old bandages, and her breathing was shallow as a dying ember. He set the lantern down, the flame throwing long, shivering shadows across the rocks. "Miss, can you hear me?" His voice was low, steady as a slow river. Her eyes fluttered open, startled, wide, the color of storm clouds. "Don't, please." The words rasped from cracked lips. "You're safe," he said. "Ain't nobody here but me." She tried to shrink away, a whimper catching in her throat. Elias raised both hands, palms out. "I won't hurt you. Name's Elias Grant. I've a ranch a few miles west. I can get you warm, get you water." The girl's gaze flicked to the dark horizon as though expecting a shadow to appear. "Please," she whispered, "don't let him find me." Elias swallowed hard, a cold knot settling in his chest. Whoever she feared was close enough to taste in the wind. He reached for the tattered shawl clinging to her shoulders, lifting it gently to see the damage. Beneath, bruises blues. Med across her arms and ribs, cruel and deliberate. His breath caught, the sight cut deeper than any blade. "Sweet mercy," he said under his breath. His soul felt heavy, as if the desert night had dropped its weight on him. He wrapped her in his own coat, thick and warm with the scent of smoke and saddle leather. "Easy now," he whispered. "I've got you." With careful strength he lifted her, her head against his chest. The lantern flame bent in the wind as he mounted, holding her close. Behind them the desert stretched endless and silent, but Elias felt eyes in the darkness. He spurred the horse toward the western hills, every stride a promise. No harm would touch her again, not while he drew breath. The cabin waited in a hush of pine and starlight, its log walls catching the faint glow of a single lantern. Elias eased the door open with his boot, hinges creaking like an old fiddle. Warmth spilled from the hearth, soft, amber, alive. He carried Clara across the threshold as if she were made of glass. Inside, the scent of wood smoke and saddle leather wrapped around them. He laid her gently on a cot near the fire, the old wool blanket whispering beneath her weight. Her eyelids flickered, breath shallow but steadier than before. Elias knelt, stoking the flames until they roared low and steady. He set a pot of water to boil, the crack of pine kindling echoing like distant gunfire. When he turned, her eyes were open, wary and sharp despite the exhaustion. "Where am I?" Her voice was a dry reed. "My place," he said softly. "You're safe here. No one's coming through that door without me knowing it." She tried to sit, wincing as pain caught her ribs. Elias raised a calming hand. "Easy. You've been through a storm." For a long beat only the fire spoke, a slow dance of ember and smoke. Finally she whispered, "He'll come." Elias met her gaze, the lamplight carving hard lines across his weathered face. "Who?" Her lips trembled. "Jeb Caro, my stepfather. He don't let go of what he taught. Hinks he owns." The words hung like a rattler's rattle before a strike. Elias felt the weight of them settle deep. "He won't cross me," Elias said, voice low as a canyon. "Not tonight, not ever." Clara turned her face toward the fire, eyes reflecting its glow. "You don't know him. He bets more than he owns, drinks more than he can pay. When he loses, he takes it back from me." Silence fell again, broken only by the kettle beginning to sing. Elias poured hot water into a tin cup, steam curling like ghost breath. He offered it carefully. "Drink. It'll steady you." Her fingers trembled as they touched the cup. "Why help me?" Elias looked to the window where the night pressed close. "Because someone should have," he said simply. The firelight flickered, painting her bruised face in soft gold. Outside, coyotes called to the moon, but inside the cabin the world held its breath. Two souls bound by the quiet promise of safety and the slow, stubborn spark of hope. The night settled heavy over the ranch, stars sharp as broken glass in a velvet sky. Elias stood on the porch, rifle balanced across his forearm, lantern casting a slow circle of light around his boots. The pines beyond the fence whispered in the wind, but something in that darkness felt alive, watching. Inside, Clara stirred, the faint creak of the cot carrying through the open window. She'd slept only in snatches, each dream breaking with a flinch. Elias kept his eyes on the tree line. He'd hunted long enough to know when a predator lingered. A lone hoofbeat rolled across the distance, then another, slow, measured. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. "Show yourself," he muttered to the night. The sound grew clearer, leather saddle creak, metal spur against stirrup. A lantern's weak glow bobbed between the dark trunks until a rider emerged, a shadow more than a man. Jeb Caro. The outlaw reined in just beyond the fence, his face a pale smear under the moon. The smell of whiskey drifted on the wind. "You've got something of mine," Jeb called, voice like gravel dragged across stone. Elias didn't move. "Ain't yours to claim. She's mine, always will be." Jeb's horse stamped, restless, the lantern throwing wild light across his sneer. From the cabin door came a soft gasp. "Clara." "Stay inside," Elias said without turning. His voice was steady, cold. Jeb leaned forward in the saddle, eyes catching the lantern glow. "You can't keep her. She'll come back. They always do." Elias lifted the rifle, the click of the hammer loud as thunder. "Step off my land." For a heartbeat the world held still, wind dying, stars watching. Jeb's grin faltered, then twisted again. "This ain't over," he hissed. He jerked the reins, the horse wheeling with a spray of dust. The lantern light swung once, then vanished into the trees. Silence rushed in, thick and ringing. Elias lowered the rifle but kept his eyes on the dark trail until it swallowed every trace. Only then did he step inside, boots heavy on the floorboards. Clara stood near the hearth, shawl clutched tight, eyes wide with fear and something fiercer. "He knows," she whispered. Elias set the rifle by the door. "Then we know too, and we'll be ready." The fire popped, throwing sparks like tiny stars, while the night beyond their walls waited, restless and unfinished. Dawn crept over the desert like a pale warning, spilling light over cracked earth and bent mesquite. Elias rode through the first hints of morning haze, the reins taut in his hands, his horse's hooves grinding against the dry trail. Each mile toward town weighed heavy in his chest, the weight of a girl's fear pressing harder than the saddle. The town itself stirred reluctantly, shutters rattling, wooden sidewalks creaking under early laborers' boots. Smoke drifted from chimneys, curling into a sky streaked with pink and gold. Elias tied his horse near the sheriff's office, the quiet air thick with expectation and danger. Sheriff Boone emerged, tall and square-shouldered, silver light glinting off his badge. His eyes were sharp, the kind that read both law and human suffering without flinching. "Morning, Boone," Elias said, voice low, urgent. "We've got trouble. Jeb Caro. He's hunting a girl. She's battered, scared. I need your word he won't touch her again." The sheriff's gaze darkened, jaw tightening. "Caro, huh? Been hearing about him. He's bad news. You bring the girl here?" "No. Safe. She can't be exposed yet. I need deputies, a warrant. I need him stopped before he finds her again." Boone nodded, serious as iron. "I'll get the men. He won't slip through this time. You've done the right thing bringing me word." Elias exhaled, the tension in his shoulders loosening slightly. "I just can't stand by. Not again." The sheriff slapped him on the shoulder, a firm, grounding weight. "That's why we trust you, Grant. You do right by the land and the folk on it." Meanwhile, the town stirred around them, the blacksmith hammering steel, a cart rattling across cobblestones, distant church bells marking the hour. The promise of law and justice felt like sunlight on a long, cold night. But miles away, Jeb Caro sat in the back room of a saloon, whiskey in hand, rage simmering like a furnace. He spat into the dust on the floor, muttering curses that tasted of iron and rot. His gang lounged around him, knives glinting, the sense of imminent violence thick in the room. Elias mounted again, feeling the weight of both responsibility and hope. The wind caught at his coat, carrying the distant promise of safety to the girl waiting for him. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a sliver of confidence. Justice was coming, and with it maybe, just maybe, the first real sunrise of freedom for Clara. The desert stretched wide ahead, still silent and waiting, but now Elias rode with purpose, every hoofbeat a vow that no shadow Sieu would outrun.